hopefully. Okay, awesome. So I believe it's recording right now. Um, and yeah, okay. So once again, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed by me for this. It's for class, so it might probably won't be published on the Nexus website, but we can see how my
I'm easy.
publish.
At least I showered.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So first of all, can you just sort of talk about your background with classical music? Because I know you mentioned that you were a conductor
Yeah.
previously, so expand
And
on that.
again, my glasses are probably reflecting. Sorry about that. I wear glasses.
You're so
And
good.
I'll try and be brief. You'll be relieved to hear. Well, basically, my family moved me to Santa Barbara in 1960 when I was about 12 from Spokane, Washington. And somehow or other, this town is everything that it's been spoken about. It is hugely artistic. It has a gigantic performing arts season for a city of a couple 100,000 people max, with its metro areas. It's amazing. So I lucked out. My parents brought me to Santa Barbara. I had no idea. I loved classical music and all that, but you know, didn't strike me until about ninth grade, and that's when I began to be very, very interested in music and started listening, on the old-fashioned LPs to all kinds of classical music, and had a couple of really good teachers. One of them was Erno Daniel, who was the conductor of the Santa Barbara Symphony in the whatever, I guess, the 1960s. He was my first conducting teacher. Then I went to Cal Arts, trying to get real in the years here, so I don't bore us both to death. I went to Cal Arts, and I was the first conducting major at Cal Arts, and I studied with Lawrence Leighton Smith, Larry Smith, and he was, I guess, maybe my most important mentor. But of course, I've also studied with many other conductors. I went to Trinity College of Music and so on. And then I chased my first job. It was with Seattle Festival Ballet in Seattle. It was my first job, A, as a conductor of dance, and B, with a professional company. We actually got paychecks and everything. That company went bust a couple of years later, and I just kind of stayed in Seattle and gigged around, and that was kind of my conducting career, pretty much entrepreneurial. I forgot to mention that I started the Santa Barbara Youth Symphony when I was 16.
Hmm.
Well, in response to kind of what we chatted about the other night at the London Philharmonic concert, um, I've been conducting since I was 16, conducting the youth symphony. So at a certain point, it kind of you learn how to ride a bike. And the other thing was the music critic at the Santa Barbara News Press, circa 1965, when I was still in high school, said, I'd rather stay home tonight. Why don't you review this concert and that concert and the other concert? And I got a whopping $12 per review. So I started reviewing also when I was 16, and I kept doing that. Every place I studied, and I studied in London, Trinity College of Music, every big city that I lived in, I went right to the newspapers because that's how you buy groceries, and a lot of reviewing for them. Are we done? And then lots of it. I'll bring us to the current point. Lots of other orchestras, California Chamber Orchestra, American Collegiate Symphony Orchestra. So it's a modest kind of second, third level beneath the pros that we saw the other night, kind of in the metropolitan level, if you will, of conductors.
Awesome.
And then my folks are starting to cave in, so I came back to Santa Barbara circa about 1982, hung out for a while, et cetera, et cetera. I think I've bored you plenty.
Thank you so much.
You
That's
get an
so
idea. I've been conducting and writing reviews since I was a kid, basically.
wow. Uh,
76 now.
$12 is funny. That's exactly how much we get paid per article here at the Nexus.
Oh, really? Oh, no offense. But those were the prices circa 1963. Let's figure Boston. No. Uh, it's always low pay, isn't it? No
Yeah.
matter how you look at it, it's always low pay. I make most of my, rent and grocery money interviewing artists because they
Mhm.
do appreciate it, and reviewing their new CDs from all over the world. So I don't chase it anymore. I'm too old. But I let them casually come at me now and again because it puts a nice little added chunk of bucks in the bank account to, do the groceries and buy some flowers, stuff like that. But I don't know what I was saying there. But yeah, as far as reviewing live events, I do it for the love of it, and I do it so people will remember me for at least 6 months after I'm gone. I think usually it's about 6 months, and then you might as well be on Pluto.
Yeah, all right. And that kind of leads me perfectly into my next question. How does your background in music influence how you approach reviewing performance, if that makes sense?
Well, as a conductor, I was trained. I have tremendous peripheral vision.
Mhm.
You still on? Uh, and the reason I have terrific peripheral vision, it took me half my lifetime to figure it out, is that I'm a conductor. I was trained to see 24 lines moving across a page simultaneously, a conductor's score. Um, and I realized, over time, I guess what I'm trying to say to you, and that's why I whispered at you a couple times, history is everything. If
Mhm.
you don't know the history of the period of Beethoven's, whatever, midlife, or if you don't know the history of, for example, Shostakovich and his life in Soviet Russia, you can't begin to hear
Mhm.
because the music is a translation of historical facts and it's also a translation of imagery. Music is at the classical level because it's so complex. It's alive with imagery, uh, and also is potent with historical facts. So I guess that's how I approach. And as a conductor preparing orchestras over many years, I know I hear I hear things, and I kind of know what to look for, and I know what I've not heard before, which is also exciting. And I try to speak to all that when I write reviews.
Awesome. All right. And so how familiar are you with the London Philharmonic? Have you ever seen them perform before?
Oh, over the many, many years, yeah, I was a student at Trinity College of Music in London for 3 years back in the early 70s. And in London, you're talking five major symphony orchestras, London Philharmonic, London Symphony, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I do remember London Philharmonic. I would run out and basically, I went to a concert. It was my first, from Santa Barbara and from, frankly, boring Los Angeles. To go to London in the early 70s as a classical music major conductor. Um, I went to not a chamber music concert. I had no time to catch anything small. I went to an orchestra concert every night, 7 nights a week for 3 years. So that I so that may have helped, because I've heard a lot of orchestras. In the case of the London Philharmonic that we heard last Saturday, boy, I heard them last maybe I don't know 7 or 8 years ago. They've come through many times in the past 40, 50, 60 years, which is how old I am. And I've met some, some have retired, but, so London Philharmonic I'm familiar with as well as London Symphony, which will be coming into town in a bit. So most of the players are gone now. They're too old. We are too old for it. I noticed a lot of younger players in the London Philharmonic the other night. That was nice.
Yeah. And how familiar are you with composer Edward Gardner and the violinist soloist? I definitely cannot pronounce her last name, but
Maybe you
Patricia.
cannot pronounce it either. Can I? Hang on. Give me a second. I think I have the program here somewhere. Well, I'm interested that you said composer. If you conducted the
Oh, sorry,
concert,
conductor. Yes, conductor. Yeah.
okay, because I wasn't trying to, you know, nail you or anything. It's just like, it went through my mind maybe because a lot of conductors are composers, but I've never heard of Patricia Kopachinskaya.
Hmm.
I got somewhat close uh, before she was the violin soloist, but I did have chance to kind of read a couple of blurbs, extraordinary, flaming, flashing, whatever. And that concerto, as you may remember, was she. I'm going to call her in my review the Shostakovich Whisperer, because remember, you could hardly hear her, which meant the concert hall went completely silent. That was magical, and I know why, because she was speaking as Shostakovich, and that man was scared to death in 1947, 1948. He was severely censored by the Soviet government and by the Soviet cultural system and all that. And I'll call her Patricia. Yeah, Patricia. played the slow movement, especially like she was hiding behind barricades. I mean, in whispers. She played it as though she was scared to death, and I think that was stunning. I've never heard it played that way before, but also really, really magical. And she understands the history
Hmm.
and the narrative. And in the case of this violin concerto, which by the way, as a kid, I thought was just gobbledygook, and you can understand why it's a hard piece. It took me a long time to understand that. But okay, exhausted from chattering. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it was incredible. I was so impressed by just her command of the stage and her presence, I would say, even
Her
when she was,
eccentricity,
yeah.
her delicious eccentricity was wonderful. If it was stupid eccentricity, that's another thing. But her eccentricity was exactly right to the piece.
Mhm.
Very eccentric. Excuse me for
Yeah.
interrupting.
No, you're good. And then just to touch back on the conductor, Edward Gardner, I spoke to Charles Donleen from UCSB Arts and Lectures, who said that he's a bit of a unconventional conductor sometimes. Were you able to spot anything out of the norm
Uh,
with his style, or did anything
well,
stick
I'll,
out?
I'll give you an overview of what I took away from the
Mhm,
conductor. He seemed to me anyway, very matter of fact,
mhm.
very clear,
Yeah.
have to be. Remember that first piece is really tough. So very much a musician's musician, I think, in that the orchestra had no trouble understanding what he wanted and how he what his body movement was and what his directions were in terms of keeping meters going and all the rest of it. Um, no, I don't think I found anything particularly,
Mhm,
different. Just that idea that he was steady as a rock in music that's very, very difficult. He was crystal clear about what he wanted and how he wanted it. And who knows what goes on in rehearsals, which may make him extra magnificent. But what I heard was an amazing low string sound that just was gorgeous, and that just doesn't happen out of nowhere. And all the rest. I mean, the orchestra is one of the major orchestras of the world, so the playing was just fabulous. So the low brass system was terrific.
it was
So,
incredible, yeah. No, it was truly like, I'm still thinking about that performance. I haven't played the cello in a while, but I was like, "Wow," like, it takes me back. Um,
yeah, well,
yeah.
that's the thing about good literature,
Mhm.
good paintings, good music. When people understand these are works of art, they're works of communication, they're works of history, they're works of craft, and that they are addressed to our minds. That's the whole point. That's why it stays with us for so long, I think.
Mhm. And I know you sort of touched on this earlier when we were discussing Patricia's solo, but what moments stood out for you during the performance, if you can pinpoint any specific?
Well, I can give you an overview impression of her, maybe. I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer the question right. But first of all, when I noticed that she had culottes,
Mm.
were culottes, correct? Her trousers, if you will,
Yes.
forgive me. I thought, that's really cool. And then her outfit was so loose and easy, which she
Mhm.
needed, because you saw how she moved so dynamically sometimes. And also, as I said, she practically whispered a lot in her playing. She was stooped
Mhm.
down and kind of almost like hiding behind a wall, excuse me, which is again quite appropriate. The slow movement is the is Shostakovich telling us the horrors he was managing to survive. And if you run afoul of Stalin, you're dead. So simple. But so I guess that's kind of it. Her playing was fabulous, and that was eccentric.
Mhm.
I mean, if anybody was eccentric on that stage, it was Patricia and her playing, and it was just gloriously eccentric. I've never seen a performance quite like that before. And as I said, much of the slow movement was practically inaudible for a very deliberate reason. That tells me she's a great thinker.
Yeah. Okay. Did he catch the no shoes? I know we discussed this briefly.
Well, yes, I did. It
Yeah.
took me a little while, and then I thought, oh, that is just so. And then I really haven't read her bio yet, but yeah,
Mhm.
no, she's not. She's professional. She doesn't care really. What I mean by not caring about the audience is she's there to express her understanding of this piece, no matter what, in her underwear, if necessary. I mean, she just doesn't care. So when she
Yeah.
took off her shoes and played the concerto barefoot, and you notice her body movement
Hmm.
really was aided by being barefoot. If you get my drift, it was important for her. Um, it was fabulous.
No, yeah. She was, I feel like a broken record, but she was just incredible. Like it was so
Yeah,
impressive to see
and
that level.
young,
And young,
to
yes, she was
forget
so young.
young,
Yeah, that
and very
was.
much her own woman. I liked that a lot.
Mhm. No, it was, yeah, it was great. Let me look to see if I have anything else. We touched on Patricia, we touched on Edward, London Philharmonic. Um, yeah, is there anything else you would like to add about the performance or your experience watching it? Like, how do you feel after? I know
Yeah,
it's kind
I
of
would
talking.
love to add a bit, so I don't want to run our time out, but hang on, I got to grab the program again because these again, it's not like I know these even these composers. Tanya Leon, the composer Tanya Leon, her opening piece, Racist, I think you pronounce it properly, Origins. I'd never even heard of her, and I'm the guy that interviews contemporary composers all the time. I'd never even heard of her. She's huge. I had a chance to listen to some of her other music, and then to realize that she's Cuban American.
Mhm.
Uh, all of that is stunning, and the piece. Well, I can't quite remember. Oh, all I want to say is that the piece is very, very complex, but wonderful to hear this composer being performed. She's huge and has a huge career ahead of her. And then the only other thing is I want to talk about just the sheer perfection of the Tchaikovsky Fourth Symphony.
Mhm.
I've heard that symphony, as you can imagine, dozens and dozens of times. I've played it as a clarinetist. Um, excuse me. Have I conducted it? Maybe with maybe an amateur, local orchestra or something. So I know the score. I've studied it for sure, and it's a war horse, as they say, and
Mhm.
it was played with, first of all, perfect balance and everything sounding gorgeous, but also with unbelievable energy. And that last whole race to the end in the last movement was fabulous. So you saw the London Philharmonic Orchestra playing that piece for the 487th time perfectly. And
Yeah.
by the way, I love cymbals quite a lot. A friend of mine plays in the opera orchestra at Covent Garden, and I've known him since he was a kid. And he has taught me a lot about percussion. And so I watch always for British percussionists. I'm talking about the cymbal player. And there's a real art to it, and the Brits really know how to get this wonderful sound. There is the flash afterward, when they flail them, but it's the strike, and then you hold those things close, so the sound will have this huge reverberation within. So I saw that right away and thought, oh yeah,
Yeah. No,
that's
I thought that the percussion section was incredible. I have a lot of my family members are marching band backgrounds, and so my brother plays the cymbals. It's a lot harder than it looks. He once tried it.
yeah.
It is hard
I had
to.
no idea, and I was a young conductor. So
Mhm.
what? So this guy that I mentioned, the Royal Opera House pal, came in and really showed me how you play percussion. He's an authority. He's still the principal percussionist at the Royal Opera House. Man, that was a huge education. Yeah. So in other words, percussion is not easy, at least in an orchestral, in that kind of music. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you plan to attend any performances in the future through UCSB Arts and Lectures or just in the general Santa Barbara area? Or
And
do you have
well, I had my first obligation is CD reviews because they pay me
to?
pretty good bucks for that. So but I intend to review everything, and that's kind of my contribution to my community in a way. I just don't want to be, it's not a weird thing, but when you get to a certain age, you sort of think, now what am I going to leave behind? In this case, to answer your question, as long as Donald will let me in, and as long as I provide the product, it is after all. I'm going to try and catch a whole lot of stuff from UCSB Arts and Lectures. It's a wonderful series,
Mhm.
and of course the rest of the classical music season in Santa Barbara, let alone the theater season.
Yeah.
It's just amazing for a city of, as I said, maybe a couple 100,000 metro. It's when I lived in all the years I lived in Seattle, there was nothing came through Seattle anywhere close to the number of international level performances that came through come through Santa Barbara, and UCSB Arts and Lectures is a very big part of it.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for
I hope that
you.
gets you a bonus check.
No, this was incredible. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
you
responding
can
to
slice
me.
that. You can clip that one out.
Yeah, thank you so
Sorry,
much
I'm
for
sorry. I didn't mean to.
yeah, this
Yeah.
was
And I
incredible.
don't know if you want, send it to me. I think it'd be kind of fun. I'll post this on Facebook.
Yeah, no, I'll send you the recording link that I will get from this, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I think
it's
I can
great.
put that up, make a YouTube out of it or something like that.
Mhm.
So, it'll
But
go
yeah,
on.
that'd be incredible. But yeah,
My
thank you so
pleasure.
much.
I'm so glad. Oh,
Oh,
I'm so
sorry.
mouthy. Sorry.
You're
Well,
good.
I'm thrilled that it's a meeting in a concert hall is like meeting on the subway. That's
Yeah.
the best person that can. Um, and so I'm just thrilled that that we had a chance to have another talk. That was great.
No, this was incredible. I do hope that we keep in contact for the future. I hope to see you around
I'll
at
send you
other.
my review. I'll keep your email. I'll send you my review just for hoots.
That'd be perfect. I'll send you mine too. But yeah.
By the way, I don't know about you, but I writing a review
Mhm.
has been and continues to be, in other words, writing an unholy nightmare for me. It is so hard to put words together that
Mhm.
communicate. Um, so I'm not just posting. I'm basically saying, hey, if I ever get the thing done, I'll send it to you. Don't count on that. No, no. I'm working on it today.
Yeah.
Enough of
No, yeah. It is a difficult task.
is.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have for you today. So thank you so much for chatting with me this morning. And yeah, I hope to keep in contact with you over the
Good.
years. Yeah.
Pleasure. Maybe we'll run into each other again at one of the
Oh,
other concerts.
that'd be amazing. But yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording.